So we've got one more speaker here. David Galloway he's not an early career professional. However, he's just in Perth visiting, and so we really wanted to get him to join us and give this very interesting talk. He's going to be talking about his work with QGIS and merging maps, fighting bushfires with the Wallcliff Fire Brigade. So we'll just.
Is it working?
It's working. I can see it on here.
Cool.
So away you go. All right.
Okay, thank you very much. And I would emphasise I'm not a GIS person. Very rudimentary knowledge. I'm also part-time firery. And I want to tell you basically about an application. And I was really pleased to hear you talk, Nick, because I never knew, MapWA existed? Yeah. We're going to need you guys. And as the story unfolds, you will learn why we need you. So, because there's matters of life and death involved. But first of all respect. This is the mouth of the Margaret River. All respect to the Wadandi people who've been using fire far more intelligently than we of European ancestry. And I also like to acknowledge that we're on the Wudjuk people's land here too. So, this is fighting fires, that's me. And that's me also looking pretty cheerful as the pine plantation burns down. Now, there's lots of things that cause fire. Let's see if I can get this to work. This is myself and another bloke. I'm a crew leader, sector commander. And we're driving around, there's a fire going on, the fire's gone through, and we come across this thing, which is an excavator that was picking up pine logs, and a hydraulic line blew, sprayed all over the engine, and then it goes up. So all sorts of things cause fire. And one of the things that we try to do is stop fires spreading. So this is another. How many of you have been there and seen the Borenup Forest down Margaret River? This is Borenup Forest 18 months ago. So we're going down the road, fire's gone through on both sides, all this traffic's being locked out, and then as you drive along, you go off the bitumen road onto a dirt track, and then we managed to stop the fire at that dirt track, and then you get into the Borenup Galloway, where everybody else is probably sitting around waiting for their lunch. That's probably what happens usually. And so we pull up. Then one of the questions that we always ask is, where is the fire and what's being threatened? Now, it might sound an interesting question to say, where is the fire? But if you've got smoke layer, you may not necessarily see where the actual fire is. And also, too, when you look at that photo, sort of doing a bit of, you've got houses over here, and you burnt behind it. So that means the fire's obviously, and the smoke's going that way, so the breeze is going that way, so pushing the fire that way. But one of the things we always have to be aware of if the wind changes, because if the wind changes 90 degrees, it immediately pushing the fire back towards those houses. So that's the sort of stuff we have to live with and work out where do we deploy our resources. If any of you have been, and how many have been in the President's bushfire? Okay. One of the things just to bear in mind if you're going to a holiday place and you're Airbnb-ing and you're in beautiful bushland, keep an eye on what might be happening with the fire, because when a fire goes through, the reality is we do not have enough equipment to protect every house. We try, but we can't necessarily do it. Yeah. And there's multiple ways of fighting fire. So this one. So this is a water bomber. It's flying through, it's sucked up 7 tonnes of water, and it's going to fly around, and then very quickly, if you look right up the top, as the camera, you'll see a little black spot right up the top. Not on the screen, it's there. Okay, that's a spotter plane. And the plane's flying over, pushing information back down to the controllers so they get an understanding of where the fire's going. There's also the question of where do you actually get water from. So this is, I was at this fire probably about 4 months ago, and it's pretty idyllic, and we sort of would back the truck up, fill it from that dam, but you can see there's that burnt patch along the side of the farm, smoke in the trees, and we were sort of protecting an area around behind us. And sometimes you can't do anything. Fire's too intense. This is one of our lieutenants, Jen, and she says, I don't know if you heard that, she's saying, are you feeling a bit bored? So yeah, and it does get quite intense. And particularly when you're sort of in forest that's 30, 40 metres high, and then you see the flames are just going up over everything. But most of the time, it's suddenly nothing happens. We go, when we finish doing our thing, we go back to the control point, and if they've had time, they've set up food, so we just sit around and talk with each other. Or sometimes we get bored, we do something interesting. So what this is about is, one of the things, if you have a fire go through, the biggest risk is that the fire will get into the top of a tree, and then even though you've controlled the fire at the ground level, the sparks from the top will get blown into the area that it's unburnt, and the fire will start up again. Now, we've got a very strong environmental consciousness, and the standard technique for managing that is to just get a bulldozer and push the tree over. Particularly the old trees with big animal habitat, we prefer not to do that. So we were bored, the fire was under control, and we thought if we put a special nozzle on, crank the pump up flat out, can we get the jet right up to the top of the tree? And we sort of managed to do that, but it took 3 of us to hold the hose, the pressure was so strong. And I'm the little guy on the back. And the colourful effect is being produced by the lights on the trucks. Okay, what has this got to do with GIS? So to explain this story, I want to talk about the size of fires and how we approach them. So small fires, generally they're less than 100 hectares. They're generally managed by the local brigade or a cluster of local brigades and national parks. It's usually local control. There's some bloke out in the paddock with a radio and a truck, and they're talking and they're looking at maps. So it's coordinated from the site. It's sort of hierarchical, but it's also a bit organic. Someone goes, well, how do you, where do you find the water there? Oh, yeah, this farmer's got a dam down there, you can go and fill up down there, etc. And it's based around, and this is the important bit, the information or the knowledge, intelligence, is really about local knowledge, memory, and paper maps. Now, that'll start to ring some GIS bells with you. For big fires, more than 100 hectares, they're usually run by DFES and national parks. Brigades can come from everywhere. We might have people, like I've done deployments up in the Kimberleys, we've gone out to Esperance and all that sort of thing. So we don't know the territory. The control is centralised, it's very military. DFES has been described, and don't quote me on this one, a sheltered workshop for the military discharged. It's very hierarchical and very controlled. And usually what filters down in terms of the fire is a plan. And that is an example of a plan. And you're told, okay, you're on for example, you're on Sector Zulu, and you've got to stop the fire crossing that line with the crosses, but no more information than that. And often the plan's given to you in black and white. So you go, now, even just reading that's challenging. So that's the patch that I want to talk with you about. How do we improve that? And this is the project we started doing with my very limited knowledge of GIS. So, some questions. Where are the tracks, and is it safe to go there? One of the risks is, we call burnover. You can drive down a track, the wind changed, the fire comes and burns over the truck. And that's what happened in the 2 deaths down in Albany a couple of years ago. Has the status of the tracks changed? In other words, has a tree fallen down and blocked the track? Because you don't want to be down the track in a truck and the tree come down and you can't get out. Where is the water? Where are the gates? What's the characteristics of the landscape? Is it sloping? Is it flat? Is it bushy? Is it thick? Whatever. Where are the property boundaries? Are you going to run into a fence? Where have we been? What's our vehicle track? And where are the other guys? And where is the fire front? That's probably the most important one. And how do we access this information? And how do we do live updates? Those 2 are GIS type questions. So I got on with my very limited knowledge of GIS and found merging maps.
and we produce this very simple thing. This is an example of a simple map. It's actually basically where I live. So the green tracks are, you can take any truck down, any vehicle will go down almost under any conditions. Yellow means you can take any four-wheel drive vehicle, because some of our trucks are about 13, 14 tonnes, really big. And then the red ones, you can only take like a Land Cruiser size vehicle down. And if it's black dotted line, it means it's blocked for some reason. If any of you ever holidayed in Prevelly, this is an interesting one, because when you look at why there's some areas there, like that one with the funny loop, that's the Prevelly Resort. So basically we can't get a fire truck into the Prevelly Resort if the fire goes through. We can get a small tanker in. It's also, the H's are where all the hydrants are, because it's useful to know where the water is. So those are the sorts of maps we can currently produce. So moving on, because John told me that if you're the last speaker, the pizzas will arrive and everybody will get a bit sort of like, oh yeah, fair enough, now where's the pizza? Anyway, so positives of this combination. There's a huge amount of information readily available. It can be updated in real time. We've got a GPS built in. It does do vehicle tracking. It's free. There's that opportunity to push information back, and it's useful for many other things like assets. The challenges, we need a dedicated data person to run the back end, and we're working on that. We've got a few people in the brigade who, one woman in particular, she's really interested in this and she suffers from arthritis. She's very smart, she can pick up GIS, you don't need that many brains to do GIS. She will be good she will learn enough to be able to do this type of thing. One of the other challenges, most of the fireys are fairly conservative and they don't get GIS and they don't trust IT. And they've got a preference for using their own memory or getting on Google or using the paper maps. So we've got a cultural shift to trust your phone. Limited mobile reception. Well, our experience has been emergent maps doesn't work unless you've got at least 2 bars or 3 bars. Yeah. And the other thing is DFES eventually will get round to doing some sort of system like this. And should we wait for that? And the answer is no. So I'm here with a pitch for you guys. We need help. If any of you want to help give us something that probably is likely to save our lives and help us manage fires better, these are big picture stuff. If any of you are big dreamers, like I was really impressed. Where did you 2 guys, or the 3 guys down there? Phenomenal. Give young smart blokes a run and they'll do all sorts of things. That's great. Being an old bugger, I feel inspired. So one of the things that would be fantastic to have is, and they've got this over east, hold up your camera, take a picture and it goes straight back to QGIS so we know what we're dealing with. The second one is, this is probably more about, because when we go out and fight fires, what we call triage. We look at a place and go, we can't save that, or we can save that if we've got enough equipment, or that'll look after itself. To be able to register what those assets are and know where they're sitting, that's really important. Tracking multiple vehicles, I know you can do it, but I don't know how to do it in merging. And this last one is a really good one because there's all sorts of algorithms that can be used to tell how fast a fire will spread. But it works on wind speed, vegetation type, slope, relative humidity, and so it goes on. If someone wants a really interesting project, if you can build one of those fire models that works live, we'd be very excited about that. The government have got that one, but they don't let us use it. So, but we do have some immediate needs, and they're simple technical advice because we're not GIS people. So, very simple one. How do you scale lines when you do zooming? Some of you go, oh, dead easy. Okay, but we don't know how to do that yet. Another one is, where do you store, whose computer do you store the base QGIS mapping on, and can we have 2 computers that talk to each other? I discovered that you don't put your merge and map file in Dropbox. So, how do you link multiple devices through merge and map? I know you can do that, and it's very simple, but I've read about it, but I haven't actually done it. How do you store information locally on the device in case of bad coverage? And I know you can also do that, but I need someone to help. So, effectively sync and capture live data. And And then the final one is, there's a heap of data sets out there. And there's one that where I would really love if, you young blokes who like doing naughty stuff. We have a thing called the AVL, which is the Automatic Vehicle Locator, which is a file that shows where all the vehicles from all the different brigades are located. And I'm sure there must be a way that you smart guys could get hold of that and bring it in to... And he's going, no, don't do that.
You won't be able to.
You won't be able to?
Not to get the AVL. So.
I bet if you wound those guys up, you could. Okay, that's it. Questions?
Are you asking us to hack it?
I don't know enough about GIS to tell you what's going
I'll
on.
volunteer my skills.
Okay, question down the back.
Sorry, knowing where your vehicles are, there's fleet tracking products out there that just put a GPS and...
Yeah, so the dilemma is we've got that, and that's this thing we call AVL. We can see it, but it's controlled by DFAS, and it doesn't give you any of this other info. Department of Fire and Emergency Services. So that's the government agency.
There's commercial vehicle tracking software out there.
Yes, and we do have that, and that's this thing called AVL.
And there's mobile phone tracking software.
Yeah, and we do have that on our phones as well. The thing is getting that information to link up with the information that I talked about, say for example, what type of tracks. Because it's fairly disturbing as a sector commander. If you look at, when I look at the AVL and I see someone heading down a track and I know that the wind's changed direction and the fire front's moving towards where they are. So it's good to know where they are, but to see that information in the context of all that other stuff I've been talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Yes.
So your second to last slide, you were talking about data sets from other departments. I work for DEPA. One of the layers that I thought you might be interested in that we have put out in the last couple of years and updated once, I think, is the farm dams data set. So that maps out all 200,000 farm dams
Yeah.
in WA. Just thought it might be useful as an additional layer.
Thank you. There's a lot that we've done that I haven't told you about to date. We do have that set, and we also use to map our not only hydrants but also water points. So there's the tanks. Yes.
So,
No, you can't hack it.
I have to sign some form to say that.
Yeah.
Question. So, who's the contact person or contact details to? If
You're going to offer some help?
Sorry?
Yeah. Are you going to offer some help?
Well, if I have information that can help.
So talk to me.
Talk to you.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? I think the pizza and beer is winning.
Thanks, David. That was an awesome talk. Yes. Okay, I'm going to plug in my laptop. You know what? Because